And good afternoon. I'm here with Marvin Lew, President of the State Council from 1945 to 1985. I am the historian of the State Council, Ted Friedman. So Marvin, when you joined the State Council, were you a staff member or management or somewhere in between?
I was in management, I believe. When I started working at Montefiore, Kurt Kleiman always wanted his entire staff, and particularly his management people, to belong to the council. So whether we did it willingly or were forced to, that's an open-ended question.
Okay.
And then starting meetings at the New York City Society. And it seems that anyone that ever opened their mouth to ask a question or make a statement, people saw them as future high officers in the organization.
Watch out for you. What is it, the old saying? I don't remember. All right. This goes to probably what you had just said, but who did you meet that made you want to advance in the organization?
I didn't hear you. It's a little.
Who did you meet that made you want to advance in the organization?
As I recall, Bernie Mell, of course, I went to college with him. Ray Sandusky, who was active at that time. And then, of course, Kurt and Peggy Opadow.
Okay. How many of the previous past presidents did you know, and what were they like?
Well, I knew them all. In fact, I'm still a member of the council.
Okay, that's great.
Somewhere along the line, I got lifetime membership.
Okay.
Now, we want to repeat the question?
Sure. How many of the previous past presidents did you know, and what were they like?
All right, I knew them all up until about 1996, when I sort of left hospital pharmacy. They were all polite, knowledgeable, forward-thinking, wanting to advance pharmacy in the council.
Okay. Okay, when you started on the board of pharmacy, not the board of pharmacy, the board of directors of the State Council, was your activities fully voluntary? Was there any budget available? And the reason I asked this question is when I had spoken with Norm Gallagher, who was one of the presidents very early on, he said that everything was basically on your own dime. So I'm wondering, when did the council start to become more self-sufficient and have their board members, have a budget or some type of line item to work with?
Up until the time I became a member of the board, it was Montefiore Hospital that paid all my expenses, the pharmacy department.
Mm-hmm.
Once on the board, my recollection is that the expenses came from the council.
Okay, all right.
And having been treasurer on my first experience on the board, I was very into saving and conserving money for the council.
I still remember at the assemblies, whenever you got up to ask a question, the treasurers all started sweating profusely.
I remember once I got up and we had something like, in those days, $2,000 of expenses and $2,000 of income. And no one asked me a question. And I said to the assembly or the meeting, here we're spending $5,000. Doesn't anyone have a question on what I did about it? So,
Okay. What challenges did you see as a member, a board member, or president for the organization?
well, the challenges were, to make the council efficient and self-sustaining. At those years, we wanted to make the members from industry who were associate members more active in the organization, so we included them on committees, because obviously most of the major funding came from them. So we tried to include them in everything. We tried to, I think, go to certain hospitals and meet with staff to encourage them to become members. And I guess that was about it. As far as a problem when I was president, have you asked that yet or not?
No, go right ahead.
When I became president, our treasury was in dire straits. So what I had to do first up was suspend all the committees. And any committees that would function without funding were okay. But for a year, we tried to conserve money, and somehow it worked.
Okay. Seems that the council never gets over its money problems.
No.
It would go in flows, but yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Are you going to ask me any questions about the Research and Education Foundation?
No, but go right
No,
ahead
but
and start to
let me
talk.
mention, in the late 70s or early 80s, we formed the Research and Education Foundation. And the main function of that was to use the funds to pay for stipends for the speakers at the annual assembly and mid-year clinicals, so that those programs would make more profit and obviously give more money back into the council treasury. I don't know what their function is at this point.
I'm not 100% sure. I know they do gain money for the RAF. They may give stipends to the state council. You know, I know a few years ago, the laws had changed somewhat and became very more stringent as to what the RAF could do for the state council versus, you know, because they were a 501c, I think.
501c3.
Yeah. So, but they do, again, they give out awards. Many of the awards, they've expanded the number of awards they do give. And I don't know how much they can influence the funding to the state council, but you know, at this point, I think maybe some of the future presidents might be able to answer that question better.
Okay.
All right. Has the council always been an advocate for the practice of pharmacy? And do you remember when it was formalized? Do you remember any of our early wins or losses?
Uh,
And the reason I ask that is I came across in my rummaging through some of the council memorabilia, a signed document by George Pataki, which was Senate Bill 2779A. And that was in 1996 when CE was mandatory, finally became mandatory. I don't know if that was the first advocacy that the council won, or was there others earlier?
well, there was something, I don't remember what, that we went on for years with the state state government on what could it be? On what the pharmacist was able to do, the practice protocols of a hospital pharmacist. And this
Okay,
went on for years, and we hired attorneys. And I'm sure you were aware when you were, taking care of the House of Delegates, that the attorneys would speak. And after many years, I think it finally passed.
yeah, I think you may be talking about the Collaborative Practice Act.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but that was actually after the mandatory CE, but yeah, okay. Yeah, that was, I remember in 1995 starting that when Harvey was president. He was actually starting the process of trying to get that in play. And it took probably 15 to 20 years. Okay. Membership has always seemed to be an issue. Do you remember what members wanted during your presidency?
What they wanted. Well, they wanted to be involved. They wanted the level of practice to increase. They wanted to have a voice. And I know when I was president, I went to at least six of the chapters just to hear what they've got to say. And my direction in my mind was that even though I was from the New York City chapter, and that was the largest chapter, that I had to spend more time at the local chapter level, making sure that they felt that they belonged.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't being well, they weren't being abused, so to say, because they weren't as functional, as rich as the city society.
Or overlooked.
It's overlooked.
Okay. Um, Again, going back to when you were president, how often did the board of directors meet and where? Was it very organized and professional, or was it more camaraderie? Again, bringing back what Norm Gallia had brought up is that when he first started, they met as a group and everybody basically came on their own. And I think it was like somewhere in mid-Hudson that they would try and meet. Do you remember if it was more organized in 1984?
Well, it was organized. I think we met about 4 times a month in some little place outside of Albany. I forget where it was.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always a camaraderie aspect of it because, as I said, all the past presidents, all the members of the board seemed to get together, except one, which I won't mention. But generally, it was something we looked forward to.
Okay. And you met 4 times a year, right?
Yeah, that's my recollection.
Okay. Okay. Next question is the changing dynamic of the council. And I bring this up as my graduating class had 5 women out of 55 graduating pharmacists. Was the ratio of the council different when you started than what it is now, or how has it changed?
Well, my graduating class had one girl and one nun at Fordham. I think it changed. I think more women got involved, more females got involved, and more of them moved up the ladder, so that it wasn't an all-male fraternity anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you also had an industry. You had female executives and the female what do they call them, representatives, and it was nice. And I think everyone was accepted by everyone else. There was no tiers of who's better or who's not. And I thought it was, as much as it was professional and for improving the professional, it was a very sociable organization.
Okay, good. Were there any mishaps or major issues when you were president, which would be useful to future presidents not to repeat?
I can't think of any. It's just that keep tabs on the finances.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention is somewhere in the early 80s, we hired an executive director, a paid executive director. And we had I don't know, by the time I left, maybe we were into our third one.
Okay.
And
I
that
think
was the person
was
that
the,
took care of all the mundane things so that the board could really direct itself a little more towards the issues that they wanted to.
okay, good, good. Um, Annual assemblies. Let's talk a little about that. When you became a member, what, where were the annual assemblies like, or what were they like, and where were they held?
The first one I attended was in Fallsburg, New York. And I remember I had a room where I could, if I put out both hands, I reached the walls of the room. That's how primitive it was. And it was the way we have it presently, but it was on a smaller basis because there were fewer members at the time.
Okay,
And one of the major things was that the management people of industry really supported that at the beginning to make it easier to become an accepted program.
okay.
And then after that, it went to, of course, it went up to, was it Lake Placid? What is that place?
Saratoga, Sagamore?
Sagamore for many years. Sometimes it was in Saratoga.
Okay. What was it like when you were president at the assembly?
It was hectic
Okay,
because you had to be aware of everything that was going on. You had to glad hand everyone, and you had to be on top of the situation. And the way that I got through assemblies, because I was on the board for 10 years, give or take, 9 as treasurer and 1 as president, and then past president, is that I would take it one day at a time, see what had to be done, and get that done and worry about the next day.
okay.
And I might, you could say I micromanaged, but of course, in the later years, we had executive directors who did a lot of the work.
All right. Uh, you mentioned that in the assemblies when you started was very small or smaller. When do you remember them growing to such size as they are now?
I would think in the mid 70s. In the mid 70s. I don't know what the membership is now, but we made it a, as I mentioned before, we made it a point to go to hospitals and make sure that the directors of pharmacy pledged to get their members to join.
Okay.
And as a hospital came, they came with 5, 6, or 8 members at a time. So it was very functional. I'm sure you saw the same thing at Sinai and Montefiore, that the whole, everyone became a member automatically.
Exactly.
So maybe that was the trick, automatic membership from your director.
All right. Generational changes. Do you feel that the new members, the millennials, will be as loyal to the council? There is much more competition between organizations now. ACCP, consulting pharmacists, the state pharmacy organization, PISNI. What do you think about the fact that there's so many different opportunities now?
Well, I think that if they're dedicated to hospital pharmacy, they'll be loyal. We always had PISNI as a competitor in some ways, but they never really hurt our membership. And I would think that if I were there today, I would join the council and I would join the other organization of whatever specialty I was in.
Okay. Uh, I have this. I don't know if you can see it easily.
Yes, I can. Wow.
That was, I had done a 50th anniversary and spoken to all the presidents. So went over some of the questions that actually went over some of them again, just to see if there's anything that's changed. Do you have any other comments that you'd like to make?
Well, I have one. What are the dues these days in the council?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know because as you are, I am a fully
At
pledged
some
member
point
for
in
life.
time, I went to an ASHP, a chapter officers meeting,
Mm-hmm.
got to the topic of dues. And I stood up, I said, the dues in New York State Council is $45 a year. I remember that figure. And the president gets up from one of the southern chapters and says, if $45 in our state is lifetime membership. So we were always a little higher than everyone else. And we were very competitive with California because at that time, because we were two of the larger chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can say is being a member of the council and being an officer improved my quality of life at work and in mentally. I made lifetime membership and lifetime friendships. And it's always a smile and a pleasant thought when I think of the past.
Excellent.
Did you ever get in touch with Marcia?
Jacinto? Yes, I've tried calling a couple of times. I'm going to try again. I
Oh,
keep
she may be,
getting,
she
yeah,
sometimes goes to the Philippines.
and I did make sure that the council changed her status from deceased to living. And again, I don't remember when I heard that, but it's probably been, it may have been a year ago or so.
I wonder which presidents passed away.
Uh, I do have a list. That I've been working off of. Clifford Lord, Lewis Jeffries, Herb Ryman, Will Hodeling, Fay Peck, Gil Simon, Seymour and Bernie, and Dave Blanchard.
Who was the last one?
Dave Blanchard.
Dave Blanchard.
He was actually the president, not after me, but the one after Frank Cisnowski, who was after me.
And I just pictured his face.
Yeah.
But what are you going to end up doing with all this information?
What I'm having the council do is put these on the cloud in individual sessions. You're the second one I've had. I spoke to Tom O'Brien yesterday. And tomorrow I'm speaking with Marcia Gutfeld.
Send her my best.
I will. And Tom sends his best to you as well, because it's been,
Where does he live? Where does he live?
Rochester.
Rochester. Okay.
I spoke to Dave Edelman. He's going to also he agreed to do this. And then I'm going to start down my list again. I'm trying to get the earlier presidents before, again, not to be, macabre, but before they pass, so that I want to get their information. And keep it as a record, because again, all the questions I'm asking, it's just things that might be helpful to a future president or someone just to know what went on back when. You know, I really can't get to Lewis Jeffries, who was the first president, or Herb Ryman, because they passed already. But it would be interesting, you know, I sat down with Norm Gallagher over the summer, and he is in assisted living, probably more like a nursing home. And it really wasn't conducive to something like this, where we actually have a face-to-face. Half of the time that the television was making too much noise, we finally shut it off. And the other half the time, the dietitian was speaking to his neighbor on the other side of the curtain, and I could hear exactly what he's going to have for dinner more than I could hear what Norm was saying. That's when I came up with the idea of these Zoom calls.
I would give one bit of advice to current presidents, and that is take the advice of past presidents, because the chances are that if you have a problem, someone back when had the same problem.
And that's one of the questions why I said, I'm bringing up all of those questions to these presidents. Bob DiGregorio, who's the present president, was the one who came up with the idea of having an historian on the board. When I was president, I had set up a voluntary position, an ex officio member of the board as a historian, to do that very thing, to give advice over what they know has gone on in the past. Because sometimes the board is very young.
Yeah. I have to mention, I like your background.
Thank you. I'm in my
nice.
third,
Very
this
nice.
is my office, so to speak. I live up in the Catskills. So outside my back deck, I have a beautiful view of the mountains. And on either side of my house, I have a stream, nice little stream that goes by, where in the summer times it's usually dried up. And the other day with the rains, I had two rivers.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain.
Yeah. So all in all, it's nice.
That's good. That's good. So it's been very nice talking to you and bringing up old memories.
Hopefully, if you think of anything else, please let me know.
How would
Could
I
always
get?
add. You can contact the council
Okay.
and just tell them that you wanted to arrange maybe another Zoom call.
Very good.
All right?
Okay.
Marvin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And send my best to whoever you speak to.
Okay, I will.
Stay well and enjoy the Catskills.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Right.